This story was sent to me by someone who asked to remain anonymous. They wanted their experience to be shared, not for fame, but as a warning. I'll read it to you exactly as they wrote it. And if you enjoy long, immersive horror stories like this, consider subscribing to Sleepless Priests. I post new, terrifying tales every night. Now, let's begin. I arrived at the farmhouse just before sunset. I remember that very specifically because the sky was painted this weird color, a kind of rusted orange, as if the whole world was dimming just a little too early. I'd driven 5 hours from Pittsburgh to this remote stretch of countryside near Route 11 in Pennsylvania. The house was old, not rustic, not charming, just old. The kind of place you don't remember building. It simply looks like it's been there for too long. The Airbnb listing was vague but cheap. I was a freelance photographer looking to do a personal project on rural decay, and this seemed like the perfect spot. The owner didn't meet me in person, just left a key in a rusted box under the porch mat. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. That smell hit me first. Mold, dirt, and something metallic. Not fresh blood, no. Just that iron-like tinge, subtle but persistent. The inside was too quiet. Not peaceful, too quiet. The kind of quiet that rings in your ears after a while. Still, I unpacked. I was here for a month, after all. And for the first night, everything was just odd. Not dangerous, not scary, just off. But that would change. It all began the second night, when I woke up at 3:11 a.m. to the sound of pacing above me. At first, I thought it was an animal on the roof. A raccoon, maybe. But the footsteps were too heavy and too slow. They moved back and forth above my bedroom, deliberate, almost like someone pacing while thinking or waiting. I sat up in bed, heart rate picking up, but not panicking yet. I grabbed my phone. 3:11 a.m. The pacing stopped. Complete silence. Then 3 soft thuds, like someone had dropped something. Then nothing. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. And when the sun came up, I went to check the upstairs. The stairs creaked like an old man's back. There were 2 rooms, one clearly a bedroom, dusty, unused. The second room was locked. There was no keyhole, no knob, just a flat door with a strange, dark patch in the center, like something had been nailed over it at one point and removed. I knocked. Nothing. I pressed my ear to the door. No sound. But the air, it felt slightly colder there, like that door breathed different air. I contacted the Airbnb host that afternoon. He didn't respond for a full day. When he finally did, it was a text. "That room is sealed for safety reasons. Please don't try to enter it." That's it. No explanation. That night, the pacing came again. Same time, 3:11 a.m. But this time, it moved. It started above me, then slowly crossed toward the stairs, and stopped directly above the first step. I didn't move. I just listened. And then came the creak. One stair, then another,
Then it stopped again. My bedroom door was closed, but the hallway outside had wooden floorboards. I knew that because I'd stepped on them earlier and they'd creaked like brittle bone. There was no sound now, until a soft tap on my door.
I didn't sleep that night either. At 6:45 a.m., I packed some of my gear and drove to a diner 10 miles away. I sat there for hours with coffee and pancakes I couldn't finish. I considered leaving, but my project wasn't done. And honestly, I needed the quiet. That's the thing about isolation. It draws out parts of you never expected. By the 5th night, the pacing had stopped, but something worse began. I started hearing voices, but not outside. Inside the walls.
They didn't sound like whispers, more like humming. Melodic, but just wrong. Like something trying to imitate a lullaby without ever having heard one before. I started recording audio at night. I thought maybe it was an old pipe system or some electrical hum, but the recordings only picked up static. One morning, around 5 a.m., I found something that changed everything. The wallpaper near the locked room upstairs had peeled back, and underneath, in the old wooden slats, was something carved. A name. Daniel. Over and over. Hundreds of times. Some deep, some barely scratched, some written upside down, and below them, in one clean line, he still walks. Don't listen when he knocks.
I tried not to panic. Tried. I told myself it was graffiti from a teenager, a disturbed child maybe a previous guest who had a breakdown. But the depth of those carvings, the repetition, it felt too deliberate, too obsessive. I texted the host again. I didn't mention the name Daniel. I just said I was hearing strange sounds and asked if anyone else had complained. His reply was slower this time. Just 3 words. Don't stay long. I didn't reply.
The next night, the house was louder. Not just footsteps. Doors creaking open, somewhere deeper in the house. Soft banging sounds. Once, I could have sworn I heard a cabinet slam shut, but not in the kitchen. In the walls. I set up a second camera near the locked room. Motion sensor. It triggered 3 times during the night. All 3 clips, just 30 seconds of silence. But in the 3rd one, at the end, a faint shadow passed across the lower left corner. I replayed it 50 times. It wasn't smoke. It wasn't dust. It was something walking. I left the house the next morning and drove to the county clerk's office in town. I said I was researching rural property history for a photography book. The woman at the front desk, kind, older, helped me dig through old records. That farmhouse was over 130 years old. It had changed owners 7 times. 4 of them died on the property. The last listed tenant was a man named Daniel Withers. He'd lived alone. In 2009, neighbors complained about screaming. Police arrived, found no one inside, but Daniel's name was carved all over the second floor, just like I'd seen. Daniel was never found. The police report said, "No signs of forced entry. House was locked from inside."
That night, I tried to sleep with the lights on. I'd placed a crucifix I'd bought from a roadside thrift shop on my nightstand. It faced the door. At 3:11 a.m., the lights flickered, then went out. I stayed perfectly still. I didn't dare breathe. I heard it again, the humming. Only this time, it was louder. And it wasn't behind the walls. It was in my room.
I reached for my flashlight, fumbled it onto the floor. My fingers found it. Click. The beam hit the far wall. Nothing. I scanned left. Still nothing. But then, just outside the beam, movement. A shape. Still watching. I turned the light toward it. Nothing there. But the humming, it had changed. Now it sounded like it was copying me, like it was imitating my breath. Every inhale, every exhale, just a beat behind. I left the house that morning, drove straight home. But the story didn't end there. Not even close. Because the humming, I heard it again, in my apartment, the next week. And last night, I woke up at 3:11 a.m. My bedroom door was open, and there was tapping. I haven't been able to sleep more than an hour or two at a time since I came back. Every night, I wake up around the same time, 3:11 a.m. At first, it was just the humming. But last week, it escalated. I started to hear footsteps again. Not upstairs, not in the walls, in the hallway outside my bedroom. Sometimes they pace, sometimes they stop right at my door. Sometimes there's tapping, 3 soft knocks, always 3. I don't answer. I don't open the door. I don't even look. I just lie there, trying not to breathe too loud. And I wait for morning.
But last night, it was different. The knocking didn't stop. It went on for nearly 20 minutes, soft, insistent, and then a voice, whispering, so close I could feel the words in my bones. Daniel. Over and over. I think I lost time. I remember daylight. I remember lying in the exact same position, my sheets soaked with sweat, but I don't remember falling asleep. And now, even as I write this, I can hear it again, just on the other side of the wall, humming, waiting. If you ever find that house, the one at the edge of Route 11, don't stay, no matter how cheap it is, because some places don't just hold memories, they hold something else. And if you listen too long, it will learn your name.
If you have an unsettling experience or a true horror story of your own, and you'd like me to share it here, send it to sleeplesspriests@gmail.com. I read every submission. If you enjoyed this story, consider subscribing to Sleepless Priests. I'll be here every night, waiting to tell you another tale that might just keep you awake.